Hi, all, and welcome to a crash course on PBLs and, well, PBLs. My name is Rob Doyle. This is for the American College of Education, and today we're going to take you through some PBLs. So, the first PBL I'd like to talk about is problem based learning. That is, you know what, I'm just going to present while I'm here. View, present. Yay. So the first one is problem-based learning, and problem-based learning begins with a complex problem. It's introduced by the teacher. It usually doesn't mimic real-world issues. So there's no set predetermined answer for it. Where it's the students kind of take it upon themselves to learn through inquiry. They trial and error. The mistakes, and there's not one predetermined set to get to the problem or to the solution, where students are more inclined to kind of figure out their own methods in order to figure out a solution. So continue here. The five main steps is, students construct flexible knowledge. They become problem-solving learners, self-directed learners, right? All of these buzzwords, so to speak, about PBLs. This is where I actually put in my reference. According to Pagnotti and Russell, students have to critically examine the information that they have acquired, discern what is relevant, and interact with peers to solve a problem with little direction. The goal of simulations is to give participants a deeper understanding of the process that is being simulated through self-directed problem solving. Their study tied into Supreme Court cases and in regards to civics. So that is where they get their words of simulation. But again, this is it's more geared towards, how the student wants to approach the issue, as opposed to the teacher saying, this is what you need to do and this is how you have to do it. It's way more student driven, if you will. And I'm going to kind of just breeze through the overviews of these two. I'd like to focus more on the examples as we move forward, which is a little later on. So the next is project-based learning. Again, teaches curriculum through variations of projects. Here we get a little more specific in regards to content and skill sets, where the teacher kind of sets up an idea of what he or she wants to see, and kind of allows a little less quote unquote flexibility. But again, there's still voice and there's still choice, that kind of stuff. And again, there is a specific end goal in mind, right? Like a rubric or requirements that you kind of have to meet, right? It's a driven question. So it isn't, kind of hot potato and walk away kind of thing. And one of the biggest things about project-based learning, and again, this is my opinion, is the reflection process, right? The evaluation process is, did you do it the most efficiently way possible? Could you have done it a different way, right? Did you feel like you met all the requirements of the assessment in a timely and efficiently fashion, right? So you have to identify your audience, you have to create a plan, you have your research, right? And so forth and so on. And this is all directly from the readings that we have in class. So again, this is just something that anyone here can look up. But here are some similarities, right? They both have projects as an end goal, or bigger, kind of deeper things. It's not like a black and white, 2+2 is 4 kind of scenario. They're both student centered and aimed for more student engagement, right? Where you have problems where, problem based, you have inquiries or possible simulations or, hypothetical situations. And then in projects, you have researches. You could do, for example, you could do a research paper, you could do a compare and contrast, you can do an obituary, that kind of stuff. Students work in cooperative groups and are engaged to, use multiple sources of information, right? And again, that's just kind of what we've talked about earlier. You have your differences, right? Project-based, which is my first point, my third point, they're more scaffolding. There's more direction. There's like a rubric or a reflection, right? That certain parameters must be met. Where problem-based is a little bit more abstract, right? And relies more on trial and error, right? So, is this the most efficient way? Am I on the right track? That kind of stuff. So this is I think the most important part of my presentation here is an example and application, because why are we talking about this if we can't apply it in the classroom, right? Some of these stuff that I think every teacher comes upon is, it sounds great, right? But in theory, it may not be effective in the classroom. Where here I have an example of both. So we'll start with the problem based. right? And this is already interdisciplinary, which is one of those buzzwords. Analyzing a shipwreck, right? Students will be responsible for studying a sunken ship in the Atlantic Ocean. Obviously, it's an imaginary situation, but it's cool for the kids to think about, right? So students need to come up with issues, right? Things for your expedition, right? Scuba gear, how are you going to get there? How much money is this thing going to cost, right? Possible issues that may occur. Is there weather, that kind of stuff? Is there riptide, right? Are there sharks? You want to play, if you want to play semantics, right? Are you allowed to be in that zone, right? The whole 9 yards. And then at the end, when the reflection piece, students need to connect it to history, historical significance of objects. Was there something there like a sunken treasure ship or sunken treasure, right? Was there a document? Was there, whatever the case may be? Any history related to the ship, right? Was it used for a specific goal, right? Can you further that kind of relevance? And does it have any impact on the environment today, right? A lot of ships that have sunk into the ocean, um, they become artificial reefs. So how does that impact the environment? Was there anything like oil on there, right? That could have seriously negatively impacted the environment. So you have that problem base and that kind of trial and error, and you got to think through your problems as they come along. That kind of scenario. So in regards to project-based learning, this is something that's actually from my discussion board. It's called Genius Hour, where students over time have acquired content knowledge as well as skill sets. And here they are taking their own spin on, let's say, a research task, right? And they have to come up with a relevant content. For example, if you're looking at something like figures of the American Revolution, right? You said, okay, here's a list of 20 people you can choose from. Here's the 5 different ways you can do it. You can do an obituary, you can do a compare and contrast, you can do, if it's a politician, you could do politicians today versus politicians, 200 years ago. There's a slew of different, research methods. You could do a presentation, you can do a song or a dance or, whatever. There's obviously requirements of a rubric, and there's a reflection piece, right? Would you do anything differently? Do you think this is the most effective way you could have done this? How did this help you as a learner? Did you work on a skill set? Did you learn more about connections between people or places? And did you find it more engaging, right? Because I think that's the end goal of any PBL, right? Project or problem. Do you find it more engaging, right? And that kind of goes back to the, again, references here, where students who are engaged and we see this all the time in all the readings we've done recently, are students more engaged, or students are more engaged students are better learners when they're engaged, right? So is this an engaging thing, right? Did I do this correctly in regards to project-based learning? Did I set this up? So that's pretty much a crash course on the 2 PBLs and how we can use them in the classroom. And thank you for letting me share.